Okay, let's just remind our viewers of what we're seeing on our screens right now. We are seeing live images coming out of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. What we know right now is that at least 10 people have been killed after 2 rockets have hit that city. The deadliest incident has taken place in the Al Jinnah area, from which we are seeing those images. In the south of the city, the death toll is expected to rise. Several people have been injured in that incident, but there has been no claim of responsibility yet. Most importantly, this area, according to our correspondent Ali Rizk, does house the Iranian embassy, though we do not know for sure if that was the target. And we will, in fact, actually now go back to our correspondent Ali Rizk, who is now standing by to speak to us. Now, Ali, tell us a bit more about, the fact that the ramifications of this, I'm trying to understand, on the Lebanese people. You spoke about the political parties such as the March 14th and Hezbollah. What kind of effect does this have on Lebanese people and their unity?
Well, actually, if you speak about the Lebanese people are sharply divided between those who support March 14 and those who support March 8. Practically maybe a 50-50 divide, or I would say at best 60-40, 60 for March 8, Hezbollah, 40 for March 14. And so, the people just go and follow, or they are supporters of their specific group. So if March 14 does say that it is Hezbollah which is indirectly responsible for explosions which take place in Lebanon, then of course those who support March 14 will say the same thing, and hostility by those pro-March 14 people will increase. That's how the situation in Lebanon is. People here are politicized people. Nobody is considered, or very few are considered, to be politically neutral, which means that the political divide between the respective parties reflects itself on the street as well, which makes the situation even more and more dangerous. I would unfortunately predict that we are heading for more instability in Lebanon, for more polarization inside Lebanon. And one other thing I have to say, if Saudi Arabia continues with this same policy of supporting the armed opposition, of opposing the US or opposing the P5+1 talks, if it continues to go against the trend, and for now it is only Saudi Arabia and Israel, if this continues, then this instability here will continue, because we have one particular political camp here which is completely attached to Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia continues with this stance, this group will continue following in the Saudi Arabian footsteps, and that hence reflects negatively on Lebanon and brings about the situation, or creates a situation like the one which you are witnessing now. The Iraqization, some people say, of Lebanon, whereby Lebanon is subject to car bombs and is subject to these attacks and these explosions. So basically, this is not separated from the regional situation. It is completely tied to the regional situation. It is tied first and foremost to the anti-Israeli resistance bloc and the gains it is making, the progress it is making, and the fact that Saudi Arabia increasingly sees itself as on the losing side and will not back down from trying to sabotage any improvement.
Right now, before getting back to you, Ali, I just wanted to let our viewers know about the breaking news we got from the Iranian embassy. The Iranian embassy in Beirut says that all of its personnel are at this point safe. Now, Ali, I wanted to get back to you and ask you, vis-a-vis this mission of these sorts of violence in the country, is the mission, as you said, to destabilize the country as a whole, or is the mission to target Hezbollah very specifically?
If you look at the timing of these explosions which took place, the explosions took place following the fight in Al-Qusayr, the strategic Syrian city of Qusayr, which is near the Lebanese border. We all know that Hezbollah played a decisive role in defeating the armed groups in that area. Now, it was following the fight at Qusayr, which is believed to have been the fight that turned the tide, turned the tables in favor of the Syrian government. It was ever since then that we began to see the car bombs and these explosions, Al-Qaeda style attacks, these explosions. We saw 2 in Dahiya. The first one didn't lead to any people being killed. The second one led to a high number being killed. We saw also explosions, for example, in the northern Lebanese city of Tripoli, and now we see this explosion right here in this area, which, as I said, this expands the usual radius. The radius was considered to be, up until now, inside Dahiya, in specific areas in the Hermel area, which is near the border. This has expanded the geography And so going back to the Qusayr and the fight of Qusayr, these acts are clearly aimed at sending a message to Hezbollah. You can't help but believe that, because of the fact that it came after Hezbollah's military involvement alongside the Syrian army and how it played a very critical role in achieving victory in that confrontation. So these are clearly attacks against Hezbollah, or a message to Hezbollah. But in the end, these attacks are killing innocent people. This is not a way, for example, you send messages. This is an attack against innocent civilians, but at the same time messages to Hezbollah. Now, I'm not sure what response it will have to say. I wouldn't be surprised if Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah does make a surprise appearance. That's something which can't be taken off. That's a factor which always remains, especially, as I said, because Hezbollah does appear to be involved. Now, once again, I know I've said this before to you, but just to all the viewers to emphasize that this comes after we appeared to hear an exchange of messages. We had, as I said, the Saudi Foreign Minister Saud al-Faisal calling for what he called an Iranian and Hezbollah withdraw from Syria. He said that, accusing both sides of occupying Syria. Following that, we had the Ashura speech from Sayyid Hassan saying we won't leave Syria as long as the reasons for us to stay are still there. It was clear a response to Saud al-Faisal. Now we see this explosion right here, which is at a close proximity to the Iranian embassy. Logically speaking, a logical conclusion is that this appears to be a message being sent to Hezbollah, bearing in mind that the attacks in Dahiya, following the attacks which took place in Dahiya, a lot of stern security measures were put in place. Cars being inspected, chains, thorough searching for the cars in general. Very, very, as I said, very comprehensive, stern security measures, which maybe prevented actually these armed groups from carrying out such an attack inside Dahiya itself. And so it might be the fact that this was the area where they found they could carry out such an attack, because the security measures in this area are not as stern, not as extensive as they are inside Dahiya, whereby, as I told you, stern security measures have been put in place. So another scenario here is that this is the area which they found closest maybe to pro-Hezbollah areas, where they had the ability, where they had the capability and the means to carry out, such an attack, to carry out such an explosion.
And so, Ali, you spoke about Syria and obviously its effect and leading to such violence in Lebanon as well. Should we expect any change in the way Hezbollah approaches Syria?
No, that is something categorically which will not take place. Hezbollah believes that, if it wasn't for an involvement in Syria, then these explosions which you're seeing, like the one you're seeing now, the ones you saw before, would only increase were it not for their intervention. Because even before the fight of Al-Qusayr, groups like Al-Nusra and these other groups did say that once they're done with Bashar al-Assad, they're going to come for Lebanon. So Hezbollah took the fight in Qusayr. One of the main reasons indeed was to prevent Al-Nusra and these other groups from penetrating into Lebanon. So